Deforestation has historically affected more than just the trees. When local communities are oppressed by government powers and have their resources stolen, their very way of life is threatened. A famous historical example of this is the Chipko Movement. In India, in 1730, a woman and her three daughters lost their lives while defending sacred trees from being felled by the royal army. The woman's name was Amrita Devi, and while hugging the sacred Bishoni trees in protest, her and her children were decapitated by royal soldiers who were harvesting the trees in order to build a new palace. This historical moment set a tone of betrayal by government in the forest-dwelling communities of India. The stakeholders of the resources that the royal army were harvesting were not included in any decision-making, and therefore had no say in the fate of their forest. A very similar situation presented itself again in the 1970s, when forest-dwelling communities in India were threatened once again by political powers who allowed private contractors to come in and harvest the trees. This led to a nationwide movement where forest communities came together in order to stop the immoral deforestation. They called this the Chipko Movement, and after many strikes and marches, the people stopped the contractors from continuing their practices and got the Indian government to put into place a 15-year ban on the harvesting of trees in order to let their ecosystem heal. The public action of the forest-dwelling communities triumphed against all odds, and those who were being oppressed by their government were able to make real change in order to protect their way of life. The major groups opposed to the Chipko movement were the logging companies. These companies had a saying, "What do the forests bear? Resin, timber, and good business." This saying shows the intent and views of the logging companies. Their only motive in interacting with the forest was to harvest it in order to increase profits. Without the concern of the hundreds of lives who lived in the forest, these companies invaded territories solely to make a quick buck. Compare this to the Chipko movement and their response. What do the forests bear? Water, soil, and clean air. This idea praises the giving nature of forests and reiterates the main purpose of the Chipko, to show that not only are you depriving a village of their home, but of their resources. These two sayings show how at odds these two groups are. One is fighting for profit and corporate gains, while the other is fighting for their personal rights, to live in the homes and villages that the removal of these forests would harm. The Chipko movement was viewed as the first successful nonviolent movement in history. Women in the village led the movement since the forest was the most important to them. They were responsible for gathering wood for fires to warm the houses. Since the women started this movement and were successful without men's help, they realized they had more worth in society, more than just raising the kids, cooking dinner, or gathering wood. This realization led to the growth of the ecofeminist movement, where women were the first to protest against environmental destruction. Ecofeminism is a movement that sees the connection between the degradation of Earth and the exploitation of women in society.
The morals and ideals derived from the Chipko are still relevant today. Not only does the Chipko reiterate the importance of the preservation of forests and cultures, but it also speaks of the significance a group can make when band together. The only way for there to be a great change in society is by a solid formation of dedicated individuals. Though one movement might not win the battle, when collaborating together, one can win a war.